Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are wading into a category that is just absolutely dense with science. But frankly, it remains incredibly confusing even for someone who tries to stay informed. We're talking about probiotics.
It's a total minefield of microbes and some very high-stakes marketing.
Yeah.
You see these labels with billions and billions of organisms.
Right, these huge numbers.
And these complex strain names, conflicting claims. It's no wonder people just feel lost.
Exactly. But we've done something a little different this time. Our source material isn't your basic consumer report.
No.
Our deep dive is based on an ultimate guide that was written for the people who are actually manufacturing these supplements.
For private label partners, yeah.
So this gives us the definitive inside track on what true quality looks like, way beyond the glossy labels and, those high CFU counts.
That's right. So our mission for you, the learner, is pretty simple. We want you to achieve label literacy. We want you to be able to read these labels, not just as a consumer, but as someone who understands the manufacturing side of things. The goal is demanding measured claims, verifiable potency, and just absolute transparency.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately. Let's start with that big flashpoint, the numbers game. If I am standing in the supplement aisle, I'm seeing products promising 50 billion CFUs. What is the absolute minimum I need to see on that label to even begin to trust it?
You need to move beyond that big, flashy number and focus first on viability and stability.
Viability.
Yeah. If the product can't clearly tell you how many organisms are actually alive and how they're protected, that's a huge red flag right there.
So it's not just about the volume, it's the survival guarantee.
Precisely. And we should talk about dosing. For most over-the-counter products, you'll see a range, maybe 10 billion up to 100 billion CFU.
Colony-forming units.
Right. The problem is that number means absolutely nothing if they're dead before they reach you, or dead before the expiry date.
I get the importance of stability. But how do manufacturers even try to guarantee this?
Well, it really starts with the delivery format. Capsules, soft gels, powders, liquids, they all have very distinct stability profiles.
And they require different technologies to protect them.
Exactly. A quality manufacturer, and this is a key detail from our source, will choose a format like, say, an acid-resistant capsule or a special coating, specifically to make sure those delicate organisms survive everything.
The whole process. Manufacturing, shipping,
storage, all of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whoa.
Now let's jump back to something critical you mentioned, the expiry date. This is the key trick that separates the good stuff from the guesswork, right?
It is absolutely crucial. A truly reliable product guarantees its potency at expiry.
Not just on the day it leaves the factory.
Never. Think of it like a battery charge. A cheap manufacturer might guarantee 100% charge when it ships, knowing full well it's going to degrade. A quality partner, on the other hand, they provide a documented decline curve. They prove that even a year later, you are still getting the 10 or 50 billion CFUs you paid for.
So if the label doesn't explicitly say potency guaranteed through expiration,
you should just assume you're buying a product whose efficacy is dropping every single day.
Wow, that completely reframes the value proposition. So while we're on the ingredient list, we often see terms like FOS or inulin. What are we looking for there?
That's where you're checking for synbiotics.
Synbiotics.
It's the combination of the probiotics, the organisms, and the prebiotics. Basically, the food they need to thrive and set up shop in your gut.
So things like fruit oligosaccharides or FOS, that's the food?
Exactly. Or inulin. Including them is a strategic move. It's meant to improve colonization.
It's their support system. Okay, so beyond the bugs in their food, what about just general suitability?
You have to demand clear ingredient lists and explicit allergen statements.
Gluten-free, dairy-free, all that.
For sure. And as manufacturers move toward more custom blends, they have to disclose if their carrier agents are vegan, for example. It seems basic, but it requires really strict protocols to prevent cross-contamination.
And what about storage?
Oh, definitely check the storage requirements. Is it truly shelf-stable, or does it require refrigeration? That impacts the survival curve immensely. If you buy a refrigerated product and leave it on the counter for a week,
you've just wasted your money.
You've wasted your money.
Let's move to specificity. We hear these generalized claims all the time, supports gut health. But when we dive into the actual research, what makes a probiotic claim really stand up?
What's fascinating here is that the evidence is only compelling when it is strain-specific.
Strain-specific.
Population-specific. These vague generalizations are scientifically useless. Think of it this way. Claiming bacteria are good for you is like claiming animals are useful.
Right.
You need to know which specific animal or which strain is doing what specific job in which specific environment.
Okay, so let's name some names. What are some of the heavy hitters we should be looking for on those labels, the ones that actually have the research base?
You should always, always see the full three-part name: genus, species, and strain. So for example, Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG.
GG.
That specific strain is a powerhouse. It's been studied primarily for benefits like preventing antibiotic-associated diarrhea and for certain immune support outcomes.
Okay.
We'll also see several variants of Bifidobacterium longum. Those are often targeted toward the stress and mental health axis, and various Lactobacillus plantarum strains, which show promise in just general GI comfort.
So just seeing lactobacillus on the label isn't remotely enough?
Not at all.
The manufacturer needs to have performed or at least referenced clinical trials on that tiny, maybe 3-digit strain code.
Precisely. And that's where all the cost and complexity come in for them. Evidence for a specific benefit, like, say, reducing IBS symptoms, is highly contingent on using the exact strain that was studied. A different strain of the same species might have zero effect.
So a strong, transparent label will actually pair that explicit strain name with a targeted benefit.
Yes. Like L. plantarum 299V, paired with a study-backed benefit, not just a vague promise of wellness.
Okay, let's move beyond what's inside the bottle to how we know the supply chain itself is reliable. What were the non-negotiables for quality assurance in that manufacturing guide?
Quality assurance is the safety net. At a minimum, products must be made in GMP-certified facilities.
GMP, good manufacturing practices. Okay.
Yes, and this is an absolute baseline.
But hold on a second. GMP is the standard for pretty much all supplements. Does that really assure quality, or is that just the price of entry? I mean, a lot of companies meet GMP and still make mediocre products.
That's a great point, and it's a really essential distinction. GMP is the regulatory floor, not the ceiling.
Right.
What separates a compliant facility from a premium one is what happens after the initial batching. We're talking about strict, traceable batch records so they can trace every single raw material. But more importantly, they must demonstrate third-party testing.
Independent verification. And why is that non-negotiable?
Because you, the consumer, need assurance that what's on the label is actually in the bottle.
So you look for organizations like, what, USP, NSF?
Exactly. USP, NSF, or any ISO-certified lab. These labs will independently confirm three things. Identity, is that really L. rhamnosus GG? Potency, is the CFU count accurate? And purity, are there any contaminants? For a manufacturer, investing in this is expensive, but it signals absolute confidence.
Let's quickly touch on safety. For the vast majority of healthy adults, what should they expect in terms of side effects?
For most healthy adults, side effects are usually minimal and they're transient. We're talking mild gas, bloating.
A bit of adjustment.
A general GI adjustment, yeah. During the first few weeks as the gut microbiota shifts, it's temporary and usually a sign the organisms are doing something.
But there is a critical warning here for certain populations. We really can't stress this enough.
Absolutely. This is a point of grave importance. Probiotics are generally safe, but they are still live organisms. So, high-risk groups. This would include people with severely compromised immune systems, those with central venous catheters, or the critically ill. They face a greater, albeit rare, risk of infection. For these groups, medical supervision is absolutely essential before starting. They are not benign for everyone.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
What about the common scenario of taking probiotics while you're also on antibiotics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Antibiotics are designed to kill bacteria, and they don't really discriminate well.
They kill the good with the bad.
Pretty much. So they can reduce probiotic viability. The advice is to stagger your dosing. Take the probiotic a few hours after the antibiotic to give the strains a fighting chance.
That makes sense.
And it's also worth noting how different regulations influence what you see on the label. The U.S. allows these broad structure-function claims like supports digestive health.
We see that everywhere.
Everywhere. But places like the EU or Canada, they require much more stringent clinical substantiation for any specific health claims. It really raises the bar.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, looking at the future. Let's talk about the cutting-edge trends shaping the market in 2025 that came up in our source material.
We're seeing a really significant movement toward enhanced delivery and stability. This is happening mainly through synbiotics and most notably postbiotics.
Okay.
The whole focus is shifting from just live count to functional stability.
So define those new terms for us. We know symbiotics is that combo punch, but postbiotics, what is that?
So synbiotics, like we covered, is the intentional mix of probiotics and prebiotics to create a better environment for them. Postbiotics, that's the new frontier. These are non-viable microbial cells,
Non-viable.
or they're functional, stable metabolites. So it's the chemical compounds that the bacteria produce rather than the living bacteria themselves.
Wait, why would anyone want a non-viable component? I mean, that seems to undermine the whole live culture concept the category was built on.
The rationale is actually extremely compelling, especially for manufacturers and regulators. Postbiotics have two huge advantages: a potentially lower safety risk profile since they aren't live.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they have clearer and simpler regulatory pathways in a lot of markets because of their stability. You don't need the complex cold chain logistics or the viability guarantees.
And it drastically reduces the complexity.
Yeah.
And, okay, if they're not live, you can't measure them in CFUs. So how is their potency guaranteed?
You're right, CFU is not applicable. Instead, potency is measured by their functional output, the activity of their metabolites or specific biomarkers that have been validated in studies. We are moving from counting live organisms to measuring their stable functional output. It's a huge shift in quality control.
So if we pull all of this together, I want to make sure the listener walks away with a practical checklist.
Yeah.
If you're standing in that aisle right now trying to figure this all out, what's the ultimate condensed checklist? Give us the 6 major red flags to avoid.
Okay, we can definitely crystallize this. If a product misses any of these 6, you should consider it a major red flag. First, strain disclosure and evidence base.
The full name. And it has to be paired with study-backed benefit.
Exactly. Second, CFU per serving and viability. The potency must be guaranteed at expiry.
Not at manufacture. Got it.
Third, delivery format. Is the capsule or powder format appropriate for those strains? Fourth, storage requirements and shelf life. Know if it's shelf stable or needs the fridge. Fifth, quality assurance and third-party testing.
Look for GMP, yes, but also that external verification from a lab like USP or NSF.
That's the one. And finally, number 6, dietary suitability and allergen information. A comprehensive ingredient list with explicit declarations.
So what does this all really mean for someone trying to be a smart consumer? It means your focus has to be on verifiable, strain-specific evidence and complete transparency. It's not about chasing the highest CFU count or trusting these vague promises. You have to demand the same level of scientific rigor that the manufacturers themselves are using.
That is the core takeaway. And I'd like to leave you with one final thought to mull over, especially about the future of this market.
Yeah.
The rise of postbiotics, these stable, functional ingredients that are just easier to manage and regulate, it shows that the future of gut health might not actually rely on live cultures at all.
But on the compounds they produce.
Exactly, on the stable, functional compounds they produce. And this raises a really important question. In a world that is increasingly focused on stability, precise dosing, and lower risk, will the non-viable postbiotic eventually overshadow the live probiotic as the dominant ingredient?
That's something to think about the next time you look at a label and just see that huge CFU count.